Hello again, everyone. This is yet another playthrough with a Commodore 64 emulator. This time I'm going a little bit more accurately with it, putting in the commands manually. And it's for Test Drive. That's the game I'm going to play through today. From the time this was released in 1987 to the release of Test Drive 2 in 1989, this was easily my favorite video game of any kind. It was extremely accurate for the time, as you can see. Excellent sound, excellent graphics for the time. And it could run on a Commodore 64. That introduction put enough stress on the Commodore 64 that it took up one whole side of the floppy disk, so you had to turn it over to actually play the game. The game involves you choosing from one of 5 of the most exotic cars of the time, as they put it, to test drive by illegally joyriding. The scenario is that you just ran into a ton of money and this is your first sports car, so you have to see how fast it will go. So you have a choice of a Lotus Esprit Turbo, which a lot of people call the Turbo Esprit. This is the 1978 body design, but the configuration is for 1986. Most of these cars match 1986 specifications because the game came out the following year and the research would have been the previous year. So there's the 1986 Corvette with 230 horsepower from a 350, which they give you in metric measurements there. It's got the real working digital gauges from those years also. It's not 100% competitive in test drive though. Ferrari 512 Testarossa, which was one of the most desirable cars you could have at the time. It's also the most competitive in test drive. It has the best combination of handling and speed, and that goes a little bit against the reviews that exist of it now. A lot of vintage sports car collectors today don't like the handling of it. But at the time it was presented as a very fast sports car that could beat a Countach and which could also be a luxury coupe if you wanted it to be. In the 80s, as in every decade since the 60s, you could get a Porsche 911. That's the 1986 911 Turbo, with a 4-speed transmission, notice. Still in 1986. This was obviously one of the harder ones to drive, but in test drive the handling is simplified enough so that the manual recommends it as a training car, which is kind of crazy when you consider the real 911. And then there's the Countach, obviously. This is the US version with 420 horsepower, but without the 5-mile-per-hour bumpers. So I don't know how accurate that is for 86. What year they started saying, hey, your bumpers are not 5 miles per hour. But It's fast, and it handles pretty well. I was able to get high scores with it until I mastered the Testarossa, actually. And again, all metric measurements. The performance data is not that impressive, but that's because the US version was not as fast as the Italian version, which set all the records for its time for a street-legal production car, not counting previous years. And anyway, I'm going to drive the 911 because, as you'll see, one of the disadvantages of this game is that although it was supposed to be a simulator at the time, the game controls are really vague and difficult, and it's very hard to get a clean run, so it's best to choose one of the slower cars which still has decent handling, which would basically be that. So you see you have a working radar detector up in the upper left. You can peel out, but it takes a little bit of effort. I failed in this case. As you push the V key, you get a digital speedometer at the top, which can be handy for figuring out your speed and curves, because the only car that has a readable speedometer really is the Corvette. But, you know, you get nice interior graphics otherwise for 1987. I was very impressed by this. And of course the DOS and Amiga versions had even better graphics. Slightly better game control too. The graphics are a strange combination of pretty bad and pretty good. At times very good. The tire screech noise is totally unrealistic, even though Commodore 64 could replicate that pretty well. The AI traffic appears to be random, but it's often very hard to dodge because you're going so fast and your brakes are not really up to the task. Also, the visibility is very short. So if you have a clean run and test drive, you're doing really well. You get 5 lives for the game. Remember, this is a video game from 1987. Here I got lucky. That was a very difficult squeeze there. Hugging the center line actually works, but you have to stay alert. So after each stage, except for the final one, you stop at a gas station and the gas station attendant critiques your performance. But the gas station has to load here. Obviously, a Commodore 64 is not as fast as a modern computer. The final gas station, of course, is not a gas station, but the car dealership where you're buying the car from. And they leave you a note saying, you know, keep the car, go home. And so on. And so this is one of the critiques they can give you. 134 miles an hour on that course is pretty good when you consider this is a Porsche 911. You can blow that out of the water with a Ferrari Testarossa, but I didn't want to put in all the practice to get a clean run for this playthrough. So after you're done at the gas station, they put you back on the road, and you keep playing until that final stage. And it is a very difficult game, but I thoroughly enjoyed this in the years when I was playing it. So next I'll do Test Drive 2. Thanks for watching.